Pick Six podcast show on CBS Sports HQ presented by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com to see how much you could save. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six podcast show here on CBS Sports HQ. Will Brinson, John Breech, Ryan Wilson hanging out in this beautiful day in lovely Los Angeles. Feeling good? Second day of the show, live on CBS Sports HQ. How we feeling, fellas?
Feeling pretty good. I made a mistake yesterday, Breech, and you bailed me out. Got some sunblock for this bald head, so not getting burnt today.
I packed the sunblock, and the irony is that I didn't wear it. My wife's not going to recognize me when I get home because it's going to be 3 shades darker from sitting out in the sun on a rooftop here in beautiful Marina Del Rey.
Yeah. Pete Prisco was asking me on Monday night. He's like, "Why's your face red?" It's like, Pete, I was on a helipad for 2 hours. Like that's why.
In direct sun.
Yeah, in direct sun. Like it's fairly obvious. Look, we got a lot to get to in this hour-long show. So let's go ahead and dive right in. The Bengals. I don't know if you guys know this. The Bengals are playing the Rams in the Super Bowl.
What?
And the Rams are already here. Because they live here. So they didn't have to travel. But the Bengals did, and the Bengals touched down on Tuesday. Breech, is it starting to set in the fact that your childhood team, the team you've passionately and pathetically rooted for 30-plus years, through all the failures and the occasional success, now is here in Los Angeles with a chance for a championship ring and to bury all the ghosts, put all the sad memories, the tragedies you've dealt with on the football field for the last 30 years, put them all to bed with one single game 60 minutes away. Is it set in?
It is still surreal. And there are a lot of ghosts to put to bed here. But I mean, as soon as I landed at LAX on Sunday, it was surreal. Seeing a Bengals helmet at the Los Angeles airport. I lived in California for 6 years. I can count on 2 fingers the amount of times I saw a Bengals jersey or a Bengals anything around the state. And now, here in LA, you see it everywhere. There's people with Bengals hats, Bengals jerseys. I think we're going to see even more now that the Bengals are getting here on Tuesday.
Have you actually seen any Bengals stuff?
Oh, no, yeah. He has 2 Breech jerseys in his closet.
No, I mean, yeah. Like Breech is like walking around, like showing himself the Bengals stuff. I mean, I haven't seen that many Bengals fans. I don't feel like. Although I guess we haven't been like out and about per se.
Yeah, you got to go down to the Super Bowl experience. But yeah, it's exciting to think that they are playing for a chance to kind of erase every bad memory in Bengals history. Whether it's losing 2 Super Bowls to the 49ers, whether it's Carson Palmer's torn ACL against Wilson Steelers, whether it's the one where they lost their minds.
We only have 60 minutes. You can't go over every failure of the Bengals. The Bengals skeletons have skeletons in their closet.
I thought we were going to get a 4-hour show where we're just going to talk about all the demons that were going to be exercised here. Yeah, so this is one game to put that all to bed, and so this absolutely means a lot to everyone in Cincinnati and Bengals fans everywhere.
Well, it's funny because producer Noah has fun chat about Britain's history with the Bengals. I just have one question for you, Breech. Are you nervous yet? It's only Tuesday. Like, are you butterflies, or where are you at in sort of trying to process what's about to happen in 5 days?
We're still talking about the game. We have the talking points. We're trying to figure out why the Rams might win, why the Bengals might win. So I'm not personally there yet. There could be Bengals fans out there who are just jitters and don't have the patience to wait 5 more days. But this is kind of, I'm hanging with you guys, talking about the Super Bowl, talking about the Bengals. So I'm loving life right now.
See, I think what's happening is, and this is just based on my observation of your various picks throughout the first day of the show and sort of how you've been talking, that you've convinced yourself that the Bengals are going to win the Super Bowl, and you're trying to set it up through all these picks. You're like, every single over/under you take is designed to funnel yourself into a Bengals win. And I think that about Sunday morning, I guess Sunday afternoon, right? Was the Super Bowl going to kick off at like 3 p.m.?
3:30 p.m. Pacific time.
Yeah. So about Sunday, about 10 a.m. Pacific time, there's going to be this pit in your stomach, and you're going to realize the gravity of the situation, and you might start drinking, maybe you'll start throwing up. I don't know what's going to happen, but you're going to have this game day panic sweep over you, and you're going to realize that there is potentially much more doom on the horizon.
But let me ask you, Breech, so your family's coming in the day before. When you guys get together, and you're generally an optimist, are there concerns when you guys get together and talk about the Bengals? Is there Breechian optimism What's going on there?
I'm glad you asked that because you guys think of me as the optimist.
Yeah.
I'm like the lowest on the optimist chain in my family.
Fantastic.
It just keeps going up and up. And like you said, I've got family members. Actually, the 3 people I attended Super Bowl 23 with, my 2 older sisters and my older brother, are all flying in Friday. So we're having a Super Bowl reunion, except we're hoping this one turns out differently than the last one.
I know, this is cracking me up. Noah did write fun chat in there. It's like
fun for who?
It's like 6 minutes of hellscape detailing John Breech's
rehashing every nightmare game that's ever happened.
What is the most painful Bengals memory for you?
I mean, it's Super Bowl 23 because my dad kicks a field goal with just over 3 minutes left. They go up 16-13. It looks like the Bengals are going to win. He scored 10 of the 16 points.
Jonathan Taylor, yes, you've told the story so many times you
right.
can tell it
so that,
in a coma.
That is my least favorite is that, obviously Joe Montana, John Taylor happens, and they lose. But I think a lot of Bengals fans would also point to the Carson Palmer game at the 2 Steelers playoff losses.
Yeah, the Vontaze
will probably be 2 and 3.
Came back game.
Oh, the Vontaze Burfict game. That's pretty. Right, so the recent ones, I guess, are worse for you. I guess when you were a little kid, you probably thought, oh, my dad will be back in the Super Bowl again. Won't be a big deal. And by the way, if you should check out in the Pick Six podcast feed if you haven't listened to it yet. We had Jim Breech, John's father, former Bengals kicker, legendary Bengals player, and Anthony Munoz, Hall of Famer, the only Bengals player in the Hall of Fame, right?
Only guy that played with the team for more than 2 years.
Okay, until Joe Burrow gets in eventually.
That's true. And fun fact: only 7 Bengals players played in both their first 2 Super Bowls. Jim Breech and Anthony Munoz are 2 of those 7. So we have 2 of the 7 on the podcast.
But it's awesome. It's an awesome show. I highly recommend it. Like I don't aggressively promote podcast episodes that often, but like this one was really, really good because they told a story about having to hitch a ride to the Freezer Bowl, the 1988, 88, right? 81 was Freezer Bowl. 81 AFC Championship game after the 1980 season from a waitress in her Camaro, which is just an insane story to think about. Imagine that happening now with like Evan McPherson and Joe Burrow. Like, hey, you gotta give us a lift.
Well, and Brinson's eyes light up because he's thinking of this story in terms of like how that story would do on the internet if we're writing that.
Correct.
Like, if word got out that it was so cold that the starting quarterback's car couldn't start and they had to go to a Waffle House and hitch a ride with a waitress working there to get to the AFC Championship, I mean, that would blow up everywhere. There'd be TikTok videos, Instagram posts. Wilson would take a selfie and
dance.
I mean, it would be crazy. So to think that happened is pretty hilarious.
All right, so like, You said on the podcast over and over again, I get to the first, when you got to the playoffs, you're like, look, I just want to beat the Raiders. I don't care. I'm not greedy. I don't need a deep run. I just need a win to get this monkey off our backs. You got that. Then you acted like you'd be fine if the Titans won because you live in Nashville, which is a bunch of BS.
Which I still hear about on Twitter.
Yeah. And then you're like, look, we're playing the Chiefs. We're huge underdogs. It's probably not going to win. You get down 21-3. You're like, okay, I'm resigning to the fact Patrick Mahomes is great. We'll have another shot, with Burrow down the road. Now, are you at the point where you're like, okay, we went to the Super Bowl? Like, now it would be devastating to lose, right?
No, now you don't want to lose. Every game before that, as you just brought up, there was, if they lose here, as long as they beat the Raiders in the wild card round, I was like, well, if they lose here, it's okay because they're playing with house money. They weren't expected to get this far. But now you're at the end of the road. There is no losing. You want to end the season with your first Lombardi trophy in NFL history. So you will not hear me this week trying to justify why it's okay for the Bengals to lose. There is no losing. This is a game you absolutely want to win. And, Bengals fans will be happy with the season, whether this game ends with a win or a loss. But no, you don't even.
Yeah, you can't. I'd rather lose in the AFC Championship game than lose in the Super Bowl if I'm a Bengals fan.
Yeah,
because at least you can be like, Mahomes took us down. What are you going to do? We didn't egg. Don't you agree? Wouldn't you rather lose in the AFC Championship game?
Yeah, that's right. You don't get this far. So, Breech, 2005 Carson Palmer team. I think the 2015 Andy Dalton team was probably the best of that run. And this team, which team do you have the most faith in, top to bottom?
Well, I mean, Joe Burrow's only the quarterback of this team, so I'm going to say that he's just look. Carson Palmer stays healthy. Maybe they make it to the Super Bowl in 2005, but that was, the Steelers were good that year.
They were this year's Bengals, that Steelers
they
team.
were Destiny's team that year. So who knows for sure. I don't think they were ever going to win a Super Bowl in 2015.
Oh, now you're turning on Andy Dalton that Joe Burrow's
A.J.
coming to his own.
McCarron was the quarterback.
It's nice of you to finally admit the truth.
With A.J. McCarron.
Now that you got here with Joe Burrow and the future's bright, you're finally willing to admit that you weren't going to win anything with Andy Dalton and A.J. McCarron. God.
By the way, Andy Dalton's watching the show right now going, what? Wait, what?
Yeah, he's like, the only guy who likes me is doing a show, and I'm trying to watch it. He's blistering me up here.
He's like, if Breech is turned on me, I've lost everyone.
I'm out.
That's right. And the other thing, too, with Burrow is, like, we talked about this a little bit on Monday's show, but, I mean, you don't want to jump to conclusions or anything like that, but Dan Marino won the MVP, went to the Super Bowl in his second season, and it looked like, and everybody thought, including Dan Marino, like, I'll be back. This isn't that hard. You know, do you have fears about that with Joe Burrow? Like, you lose this one, and then, like, all of a sudden you could be 10 years down the road and you haven't. And Pete Prisco's prediction about a Bengals Super Bowl hadn't come true, and everybody, you know, you're sort of starting to panic, and then you get Dalton 2.0. How much does that weigh on your soul, John?
I mean, you definitely think about that because you look at a situation like Dan Marino, 1984. He took the league by storm in his second year, just like Burrow's in his second year. And then you look at that he didn't get back to the Super Bowl. Dan Marino, how did he not get back to a Super Bowl?
I mean, Aaron Rodgers only went to one.
Right, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees. You have this long list of quarterbacks who only won one Super Bowl, and so it is.
Looked like Peyton Manning was going to be there until he stole one at the in the 2000 Super Bowl.
Well, right.
I mean, Peyton. Look, I'm not saying he didn't earn the Super Bowl.
But because of Tom Brady, I don't think people appreciate how difficult it is to get to a Super Bowl because Brady's doing it every year. But yeah, you know what though? If they win this, and Joe Burrow ended his career with one Super Bowl, he's got a great career compared to almost every other quarterback. You know, because Dan Marino didn't win a Super Bowl.
Right. Well, and that's, again, like, people get mad about the Matthew Stafford stuff, and we'll get into it, I'm sure. But, like, that's sort of the whole point. If Joe Burrow wins this Super Bowl and then never makes it back to another Super Bowl but has a 10, 12, 15-year career, whatever it is, and is productive and healthy, he's going to go into the Hall of Fame. Like, you get that Super Bowl, and stop it.
There we go.
I mean, again, you're projecting 15 years. It's not guaranteed to happen, but if you have that Super Bowl in your resume, it's just pretty likely if you're an elite quarterback over a sustained period of time, you're going to the Super Bowl.
So here's a little fun fact for you, Breech, and Brinson as well, but I know, Breech, you're the fun fact fan, the guru, if you will. Six players, I have it written down here, started their second year in the Super Bowl. You mentioned Dan Marino. Do you know the other guys who started the Super Bowl in year two?
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady's
on the list. Are they all recent?
No. Dan Marino, yes.
Kurt Warner?
Kurt Warner, 1999.
All right, got Kurt Warner. That's 3 out of 6.
Yep.
Burrows?
Patrick Mahomes.
No.
Burrows 4?
Oh, Mahomes didn't go to second year.
Burrows, he will be, but he's not on the list yet.
Okay, so
because he hadn't started.
3.
Yeah. So I'll give you a hint. Big Ben's another one.
That makes
how
sense.
could I miss Big
And then
Ben?
2 more. A whole badger of Wolfpacks is one of them.
Oh,
Russell Wilson.
Yeah,
And
makes
then
sense.
Colin Kaepernick.
Interesting.
So
That
Joe
is
Burrow can
interesting.
join that list.
And that's an interesting list because, look, Russell Wilson only has one Super Bowl win, even though they went to 2 straight.
You know who else only has one Super Bowl win? Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes only has one Super Bowl win. Colin Kaepernick, not in the NFL anymore for various reasons.
Don't really have to steer us into a Colin Kaepernick
Thank you for
discussion,
that,
but thanks, Breech.
Breech,
Why
you
don't we stick around and just talk about Joe Burrow? For instance, now it's time for everyone's Geico 15-second statement. Let's predict what Joe Burrow's exact stat line will be in Super Bowl LVI. Ryan, we'll start with you.
So I'm going to go 27 of 42, and I feel pretty good about these numbers. I ran them through the wins over Wilson model. 27 of 42.
This is really an accurate day for him.
310 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. I think he's going to throw the ball a lot, and I think that at the end of the day, those might be MVP numbers, Breech.
I mean, they sound like MVP numbers. I like how you're thinking, but I don't like all the thinking.
I get that a lot.
16 incompletions, a little too high for me. I'm going to modify the wins over Wilson model and switch it to, I'm going to say 26 of 35 for 351 yards.
You can't modify the wins over Wilson model. It's
2 touchdowns and 1 interception. I like that part.
Patent pending.
It's Wilson's statistical model inside his brain. You can't modify it.
Come on,
you got to come up with your own.
You give him enough Bud Lights and it modifies itself.
Oh, my God. Bringing up Colin Kaepernick, talking about people that don't sponsor this program on the thing. Good job, Breech. I'm going to say, it's probably unpopular, I'm going to say Joe Burrow goes 22 of 28 for 260 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions.
What?
That's right. And I think you can kind of predict what the outcome of the game might be based on bets over Brinson.
Bets over Brinson. Bobs, if you will.
Coming up next, we got news and notes to hit around the NFL, including Tom Brady might not have completely ruled out retirement. What? We'll talk about that next here on the Pick Six Podcast Show on CBS Sports HQ. Welcome back to the Pick Six Podcast Show on CBS Sports HQ, presented by Geico. Will Brinson, John Breech, and Ryan Wilson hanging out here in lovely Los Angeles. The vistas behind us are just marvelous on the CBS Sports HQ set. Shout out to all the folks behind the scenes who made this as gorgeous as it is, because they're working a lot harder than we are.
Yes.
We are sitting here in these chairs with our legs crossed talking football. Those guys are grinding the whole time out here. There are too many people to name, but we'll give Quinn a shout out since she's here too. Let's dive into some news and notes. Tom Brady, who retired twice. I don't know if you guys remember this. We had to go on HQ multiple times over the course of 3 days because Tom Brady kept retiring, or kept reportedly retiring, then not reportedly retiring, and then actually retiring. Then he didn't thank the Patriots enough. And then the Patriots fans were mad because he didn't thank enough people.
And then Brinson had to record 2 emergency podcasts.
It was ridiculous. I mean, but it's, he's the GOAT. It happens. But he came out and said, when asked about coming out of retirement, you never say never. Retirement may change. It most likely won't. How dare you, Tom?
Let me start by saying this. Breech, what did I say to you when he released his Instagram "I'm leaving" story?
I can vouch for Wilson that he said that Tom Brady specifically did not mention the word retirement in his retirement note, and therefore didn't technically retire.
Yeah, so
and he certainly hadn't filed paperwork yet. I mean, right?
And there was some scuttlebutt around the Senior Bowl when I was there about, maybe he's not actually hanging him up, and we can talk about potential landing spots at some point. But as Prisco said to me, he's still under contract, so I don't know what the future holds. But the fact that he's pulling a Sean Payton for a year, I don't know. I don't know what his long-term plan is.
Look, we all love our families. I love, shout out AK, Robbie, George the dog. Love my family.
Shout out the dog.
But, if you're Tom Brady, George might be listening, might be watching. If you're Tom Brady and you've spent your, the last 20-plus years in this routine of covering football, or playing football, and, training camp and all this, it's going to hit at some point when you're at home, whatever you do, whatever old his kids are, just at home cooking pasta or something, or making mac and cheese, or
gluten-free,
some
pasta,
some zoodles or something like that,
Were those beans that Tom Brady eats?
Yeah, the mung beans. Mung beans. When you're the one who's making all the mung beans for the kids, and you're sautéing that salmon, and you're like, man, I wish I was out playing football again.
I don't know if he would miss it in the training camp part of it, especially someone in his mid-40s. But maybe it's a situation where you talk about veterans who, October rolls around and someone gets hurt, then you turn your phone on. But I could see him skipping all the August stuff, sort of what Aaron Rodgers didn't want to participate in. When I thought, no one else thought he was going to be out of Green Bay.
It's funny you brought up Aaron Rodgers, because I was thinking of another Packers quarterback. Sounds like Tom Brady has some Brett Favre syndrome. Because I remember a certain day back in mid-2008 where Brett Favre announced his retirement, and then 3 months later decided, you know what, I don't want to be retired. I'm going to play football this year. And then the Packers had to trade him to the Jets, so he waited to the last possible second to put the Packers in the most awkward situation.
So they sent him to the Jets.
And as we said, Brady is still under contract, so maybe he waits till, the Buccaneers fix their cap space and get everything
Or they go sign Jameis Winston or something like that, and then he's like, actually, I do want to play, but I want to play for somebody else. Do you think it's possible, Wilson, that you mentioned the scuttlebutt at the Senior Bowl in Alabama, down in Mobile. Do you think it's possible that Brady kind of wants out of Tampa Bay but doesn't know how to say it in a way that will be nice? Or, in other words, he can't just be like, you know what, we're not going to be able to bring everybody back. The free agents are going to be gone. AB was off the reservation. Chris Godwin got injured really late in the year. He probably won't be ready to start the year. He's a free agent anyway. Some of these defensive pieces are going to be gone. I don't know if I want to deal with a rebuild type of thing, but if I wait long enough, I can jump in with, maybe Aaron Rodgers leaves and I'd go to the Packers.
Yeah, so a couple things. So I just figured Chris Godwin maybe was going to be done in Tampa Bay, but it sounds like when you talk to the Tampa Bay beat reporters, they feel like he's coming back. They're going to franchise him, so that's interesting in and of itself. They drafted Kyle Trask last year into round 2, beginning of round 3. I don't think he's ready to play. We just don't know. And the other thing is, why would Tom Brady want to leave that situation? He only said great things about Byron Leftwich, and maybe he doesn't mean them, but also, this is the same guy that took Antonio Brown under his wing, and if you can deal with Antonio Brown stuff, I feel like everything else you say is probably true. And Breech, is there a better situation? Like the Packers on paper maybe are better, but you're playing in Green Bay, and I feel like he is done with that sort of thing. If you're going to make me guess, and this is what we talked about 2 years ago when he was leaving New England officially, and everyone's like, oh, he's going to go to San Francisco. Kyle Shanahan, he's from Northern California. And that is where I would go to initially. Jimmy Garoppolo's leaving. The Trey Lance thing's become suddenly very much more interesting, but I don't know why he would want to leave Tampa Bay.
I think 49ers is the answer. Bingo. That was the team he wanted to play for. That is where he's from, the Bay Area. And
he was at the catch game.
Well, right. He was in the 1981 NFC title game against the Cowboys. So you are talking about a situation where
why? If you're the Bucs, how do you let that happen? I'd be like, no, Tom.
Well, you work at it. If the 49ers want him bad enough, you tell them.
What about Trey Lance for Tom Brady?
They're not going to trade Trey Lance for 1 year, Tom Brady.
Trey Lance and 2 first-round picks for Tom Brady?
But if you're Brady, though, if you're Brady...
Oh, no, sorry. Trey Lance, the other way. Trey Lance for Tom Brady and 2 first-round picks.
That's probably a conversation you can have.
No, but if Brady's only playing 1 year, you're not going to give up 2 first-round picks.
More than 1 year.
No, I think Brady thinks he has probably 1 good year left, and you just said you got to look around the league to say what team has the best chance of winning. And it's not just the 49ers because it's your hometown team. They're just in the NFC title game. They're literally 1 quarterback away from being in the Super Bowl. If Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't play I'm not going to throw him under the bus, but if he plays a little bit better, the 49ers probably win that game.
All right.
Settle on the Jimmy G slander. We'll get to
That's
Jimmy
tough.
G in a
You're
second.
saying that Jimmy G is better or worse than Tom Brady?
I would say Tom Brady is better than Jimmy Garoppolo.
Both are Hall of Famers, Breech. Don't misunderstand. But Tom Brady's a little better.
I didn't realize saying Brady was better than Garoppolo was a controversial take.
No. Look, so speaking of controversies, Kyler Murray did the thing that these millennials think they can do. These young children, get off my lawn, he said, yelling like Pete Prisco.
While tweeting.
While tweeting and like doing like 2 or 3 social media, like, I'm at Discord. Kyler Murray unfollowed the Cardinals on all social media accounts. It deleted all of his franchise-related pictures on Instagram. I assume that this is a statement he's sending to the Cardinals, right?
Breech understands.
Big deal or no deal?
Breech understands on a subsurface level what all this means, so I'll let you interpret because I have no idea.
Well, I'll just say the only time you do this is when, like, you break up with your girlfriend, you scrub the Instagram, you get rid of her.
But they're still living in the same house together.
No, you unfriend her on Facebook, and yeah, exactly. But you haven't gotten out of that lease yet, so you're still stuck with her.
Wait. So you before you break up, it's a preemptive like airstrike.
Oh, you're in the bathroom. She's in the living room.
Right.
She's
and you're
like
sending all the signs.
And she's like, John, I just noticed you deleted all of your Instagram pictures of me.
Oh, well, funny thing, honey. I've got something I need to talk about right now.
Wait, there's nothing you need to talk about.
Right.
You're telling her very clearly that it's over.
But you're still stuck you're stuck in that apartment
Right.
lease, which in this case is Kyler Murray's contract. And that is, it really feels like, hey, this is the first offseason where he is allowed to negotiate an extension, and maybe his agent went to the Cardinals and they're like, we're not giving you one. Wait till next year because, you haven't done enough or whatever. It does feel like you don't do this unless there is something negative going on.
It's weird, for sure.
Every time this happens, it's contract related. Julio Jones did it with the Falcons when he wanted more money and they weren't trying to pony up. I think what's bizarre is that the Cardinals would hesitate so much in giving Kyler Murray a deal that he would.
What if it's this? I have a quick theory. What if it's that Kyler Murray, and this is me just speculating, because we were talking about in December, Cliff Kingsbury's going to get a huge extension. Maybe he doesn't want Cliff Kingsbury there? Is there a possibility that...
remember that
Let me ask both of you this.
Okay.
Because you just brought up the contract. If you are the Cardinals going into, you've seen 3 years of Kyler Murray, are you comfortable signing him to a 5-year, $220 million contract?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think you
Giving
have
him
to.
$42 million a year?
What's your other option? Yeah, Josh Rosen the year before.
No, your other option is letting him play out his 4th year and giving him the extension after 1 more year with him.
If I'm confident that I have a franchise quarterback on my roster, and I think Kyler Murray is a franchise
Or
quarterback.
what if he's asking for more money than Mahomes? What if he wants to be the highest paid quarterback? Are you going to do that?
You sort of have to if you want
Kind of
to.
have to.
$46 million a year? You're going to give Kyler Murray $46 a year?
I think the problem here is that we heard Michael Bidwell come out after the season and say how disappointed he was and how disappointed he was to lose in the way that they lost, getting blown out by the Rams, struggling down the stretch. Cliff Kingsbury's had these trends of that over his teams with Texas Tech and now with Arizona, and I sort of wonder if maybe the lack of commitment to Cliff Kingsbury and Steve Keim, just by virtue of what Michael Bidwell said, could be a reason for Kyler Murray to hesitate, or a reason for both sides to hesitate. And therefore, you find out from your agent who's talking to the team, they're like, look, they're not ready to do this deal this offseason. They want to see what happens next year, not just with you, but with the coach and the GM as well. And there would be some hesitancy, I think, if you're Kyler, to sign that contract if you didn't know that Cliff Kingsbury was going to be there past your fourth year, because you could get stuck there. And so that hesitancy across the board could be a reason why this thing is kind of stuck in the mud. The Cardinals are not exactly they're not making it rain out there. I mean, they're a fairly frugal franchise, I think, and not in a bad way. And maybe that is what causes Kyler to say, you know what? I can't believe that this is happening like this. I'm going to delete all the pictures on Instagram because I hate birds.
I think Breech is right. It feels like he's still stuck in the apartment. I mean, he's just in the bedroom and she's in the kitchen. She's like, I can still see you back there. So come on out. Come wash these dishes with me and quit your belly aching. Because what else is he going to do? I mean, he can pout and he can sit out, but at the end of the day,
not really.
But it's one thing. You mentioned Julio Jones. Julio Jones had scrubbed his profile. It's one thing for a position player to do it. It's another thing for the face of your franchise to do it.
It's weird.
It's not a good look for either side.
And I mean, like, I know it sounds stupid. Like, if I was trying to explain this to my dad, he'd be like, this is the stupidest thing you've ever talked about. Please stop.
Wow. And then you'd be like, welcome to my life, Dad.
Maybe not the stupidest thing I've ever said, but, like, he would just be like, why are we talking about this guy's Instagram account?
Yes,
but it is legitimately something that these younger players and that these younger, the kids these days, that they do as a way of, like, expressing like significant disappointment.
You send a message without sending a message.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
message
absolutely.
received.
Yeah. Okay.
Can you imagine the Cardinals front office, like their owners, talking about Kyler Murray's Instagram account? Like, they probably don't even have an Instagram. Like, what's the Instagram?
Yeah.
He did what now?
Kyler deleted all his Cardinals-related TikToks. Excuse me? All right, we got to talk about the game, too. The Super Bowl coming up on Sunday. And after the break, we'll make the case why the Rams will cover and why the Bengals could cover next here on CBS Sports HQ. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Pick Six Podcast Show here on CBS Sports HQ. Will Brinson joined by John Breech and Ryan Wilson. We are here on a helicopter pad, a helipad, if you will, in Marina Del Rey, a beautiful setting for Super Bowl week and all the great content we have coming your way on CBS Sports HQ. Your home for coverage leading up to the big game. We got to talk about that big game. Super Bowl. Your Bengals are in it. My Rams are in it.
Yeah, boy.
Look at us. Who would have thought? It's the old.
She's got no one.
I'm here.
Yeah, you lose. This is a lose-lose situation for you, Wilson.
No, I'm pulling for Breech. Clearly, I don't want you to have any success. It's pretty cut
Because it's either
dry.
Matthew Stafford wins a Super Bowl
or
the Bengals get one, and you got to deal with a peacocking happy Breech. I do wonder, though, if the Bengals win, could we see less passive-aggressive Breech? Could he be happy-go-lucky Breech?
He'll take it into overdrive. It'll be worse.
So. I think so, too. He'll be unbearable, frankly.
Yes.
Almost as unbearable as me with a Matthew Stafford victory. Let's make a case for a Matthew Stafford victory, but not just a victory. A Matthew Stafford victory and a cover. The Rams are 4.5-point favorites. Likely going to stick at 4.5. I think that's what what you hear from the sharp guys, Kenny White, Todd Furman. Make sure to check out their content, of course, on CBS Sports HQ as well. I think the Rams are going to cover, so it's easy for me to make the case. For me, it's about the Rams' defensive line up against the Bengals' offensive line. Joe Burrow's been under fire all postseason, sacked 9 times by the Tennessee Titans. Max Crosby was living in his kitchen. Chris Jones had him down, and then he escaped. Yes, that escapability is a big factor. His mobility is a big factor in what makes the Bengals dangerous. But with Aaron Donald and Von Miller, I think it's going to be tough for him to get away. I think Zach Taylor versus Sean McVay is a pretty big mismatch in the favor of the Rams. Defensively, the Bengals are good, but I think the Rams are a lot better. And I think what we've seen from Matthew Stafford so far on these big playoff stages has been that, he's able to step up. It's the opposite of what the narrative was. I'm not asking you to refute it because we'll get to the Bengals in a second to make the case for them. Give me your logic on why the Rams could cover. Wilson, I'll go to you because it seems weird to ask the Bengals homer how this could unfold.
I have a couple of fun facts, and you won't find this hard to believe, Breech. I do disagree with Brinson, and we'll talk about that in a second. But here's one thing that perhaps gives the Rams a chance at the 4.5 number, which I feel is kind of high, given how well the Bengals have played. But again,
I feel like the 4.5 is driving people to the Bengals.
Right, I think you're right on that. So here's my fun fact for why the Rams can cover. The Bengals will be wearing black, as you know, Breech. Teams that aren't wearing white are 20-35 in the Super Bowl, and since Super Bowl 39 and the Super Bowl 36, those teams are 3-14. So that's the
case.
That's the
for
fun
the Rams.
fact for.
And the Bengals even had first choice of uniforms. They could have gone white.
So I'm on the Bengals, so it's hard for me. I mean, the things you said are exactly right. I think if everything.
I guess walk through because this is how I do it anyway. I walk through what I think is the most likely scenario in
I'll
my
walk
head.
through it, but I have to be careful because I'm going to end up refuting the things that you're saying. But Von Miller, he could be the first two-time MVP as a defensive player. It's always been the quarterbacks who've won it more than once. Jalen Ramsey, if they capitalize on some Joe Burrow mistakes early on, that could certainly be the turning point. Obviously, the defensive line is better than the Bengals' offensive line, and I have to catch myself from saying but. Look at the Titans game. And that's Breech's talking point as well. And Matthew Stafford, as we've talked about, not just this week, but since he won his first playoff game, he was 0-3 with the Lions. He's been 3-0 in the playoffs with the Rams. And Tony Romo said after that if you get that first playoff win off your back, things seem to get easier, and they appear to have gotten easier for him. So maybe this is just the next step in that evolution. So, yeah, they could win by 10 points, absolutely, but the Super Bowl games in general have been a pretty close to player Breech.
You know what? Don't even bother.
No, I'm going to bother because I would like to make a point.
I want you to make the Bengals case.
No, I'm making the Rams point right now. I'll do it quickly, but I do love that Brenton had to quick look at me and say, you're not here to refute my Rams point. We're talking about the Rams. Here's what I say. Here's what I would say as someone who would like the Bengals to win, that my biggest fear going into this game.
There we go. This is what I'm talking about.
This is what you want.
Open your soul for the world, Breech.
What Ryan Wilson just said, that most Super Bowls have been close. You know what Super Bowl wasn't close? Last year's Super Bowl. Super Bowl 55. My fear is that this game turns into Super Bowl 55, where we spent all week talking about how there's no way anyone could slow down Patrick Mahomes, how he was going to dice up the Buccaneers, but there was always that fear that the Chiefs' offensive line was so bad that the Buccaneers might be able to overrun them and just attack Mahomes the whole game, and he won't be able to do anything. And that's exactly what happened. And so if that scenario plays out on Super Bowl Sunday, where Joe Burrow's getting 0.3 seconds to throw, and Aaron Donald and Leonard Floyd and Von Miller are all up in his grill as soon as the football touches his hands on a snap, then the Bengals are going to be in trouble. So my biggest fear is that this game turns into last year's game and the Bengals lose by 3 touchdowns, and it's completely possible. I give it a 1% chance of happening, but I will acknowledge that it's absolutely
completely possible.
And the weird thing, too, is you're like, well, maybe they'll be down 21-3. It's like, but they can come back. It's like, can they? And you think, you're like, they can't pull that off in back-to-back games. You're like, I mean, if they can hold Mahomes to 3 points in the second half, can they do that to Sean McVay? And I mean, it's Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, right? I mean, can they do that to Matthew Stafford? Can they do that to?
And the Rams aren't going to have any timeouts in the second half anyway, so that's something else to keep in
or
mind.
challenges for sure.
Right.
All right, make the case for the Bengals, Breech, or make the case for the Bengals, Wilson. Then we'll let Breech do it.
Okay, so we're just talking point spread here, but again, I'm probably going to end up picking the Bengals to win this whole thing. But in terms of point spread, when teams are favored by more than 4.5 points, their records as favorites 2-10. The only teams to cover those spreads are the Steelers and then the Colts. I think the year before in 2006. 3 points or fewer, those teams that are favorites are 5-3. So the 4.5 points leads me to believe again, Breech, this is going to be a close game. The sharps are sharps for a reason. The line is where it's at for a reason, and I think that we're asking a lot. And Breech mentioned his concerns about this game potentially be a blowout. And you touched on it, can the Bengals do this in back-to-back weeks? Well, they beat the Chiefs twice in back-to-back games, which were 3 or 4 weeks apart. And then they won the Titans game where he took a beating. I don't think he's going to get sacked, Joe Burrow, 9 times in this Super Bowl.
That would be a problem if he sacked 9 times
But
again.
he still found a way to win that game. And look, the Rams' defensive line is absolutely better than the Titans' defensive line. But, Breech, I think you will agree, the Titans' defensive line was pretty good.
Well, I think that if you look at who the Bengals have played this year in games where people thought they were going to lose bad, the Packers game back in October, that ended up going to overtime. It's a game the Bengals probably could have won.
They swept the Steelers.
The 49ers were in the NFC title game. The Steelers made the playoffs. The 49ers made the NFC title game. They lost.
Backhanded compliment, but go ahead.
They lost in overtime to the 49ers. You look at the AFC playoff field. Like you just said, they had to beat the Chiefs twice. They had to beat the number 1 seed Titans on the road. They beat the Raiders twice. They didn't just beat the Steelers twice. So they have beat a lot of good teams this year.
Better special teams.
And you know what else? You brought your stats up with the point spread. teams that are an underdog of exactly 4.5 points are 3-0 straight up all time in the Super Bowl when the spread is exactly
nervous.
4.5 points. But here's the thing.
I made him
that
snot. Look at that.
every talking point against the Bengals, we've already seen them a way to win it. If you want to say, hey, Aaron Donald's going to smash him, Joe Burrow's going to sack 10 times. Well, we already seen Joe Burrow win a game getting sacked 9 times, so we know that's possible. Oh, well, if you get a big lead on the Bengals, they can't come back. Well, they already did it in Kansas City, so we know that's possible. So every talking point that goes for the Rams, you can reverse back
Brinson,
and say, well, the Bengals have already done this.
I get the impression that he's given that speech 5 times in his hotel room mirror.
Shirtless in his mirror. You can do it, Joe!
But I do think a big if the Bengals are going to cover, if the Bengals are going to win, I think they need a big game from Joe Mixon, because if he gets going on the ground, that takes a lot of pressure off Joe Burrow. And even if he gets going just with these little short passes where Burrow can get an outlet to him real quick so he doesn't get sacked, that will be big. So I think if Joe Mixon has a big game, that would be really big.
Just as a final counterpoint before we go to break, I would point out that your argument for the Bengals is like, they can survive any disaster.
Yeah.
They're a cockroach. The Bengals are the NFL's cockroaches.
They're going to be around
can't
forever.
Kill them. That's right. All right, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we got to do some player props. You can't talk the Super Bowl. Can't be out here at the Super Bowl and not talk player props. We'll do just that next here on CBS Sports HQ. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Pick Six podcast show here on CBS Sports HQ. Will Brinson joined by John Breech and Ryan Wilson, live in Los Angeles. Super Bowl week, Bengals and Rams. I mean, I got to tell you, this is like this setup. I hadn't flown in 2 years until we came out here. I was a little nervous, just hadn't traveled for work in a while, and this is. My wife pointed out, you're going to love it when you get out there. She was right, because this is awesome. Like, this is one of my favorite Super Bowl setups that we've had. Just thought I'd put that out.
I'm glad TSA got a 2-year break from Brinson.
Right.
Can you imagine having to let that guy through?
Yes.
All right. Anyway, let's not talk about my TSA privileges. Let's talk about some over, under. Okay, was it the? Actually, I'm not going to mention that commercial because that's a different sports book. Anyway, we'll do some player props. How about that? Some overs, some unders, cashing those tickets. Joe Burrow. We'll start with you, Wilson. Joe Burrow, over or under 273.5 passing yards.
That feels like a high number, but I'm on Team Breech. Stockholm Syndrome is taking full effect. I'm buying all in. But also, Joe Burrow has been unbelievable, not just the course of the season, but he's gotten better each and every playoff game. So I feel like he is going to have to bear much of the burden, and Breech talked about the importance of getting Joe Mixon going here, but I think at the end of the day, this is going to come down to Joe Burrow moving the ball in much the way we've seen him do that throughout the playoffs. Joe Mixon hasn't taken over games yet in the playoffs. That doesn't mean he won't, but I think what we have to expect from Joe Burrow, if you're Zach Taylor, is that he's going to throw for a lot of yards in order for you to have the best chance to win. So I'm going over that number, Breech.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. Look, again, Joe Burrow is going to face a lot of pressure on Sunday. There is no doubt about that. The Bengals don't even know who their right guard is going to be in the game, and we are 5 days before the Super Bowl. But you know what? He went over 325 yards in a game where he got sacked 9 times, and that is way over whatever Brinson said the over was here, 270-something. So even if he gets beat up in the game, I think that he is going to go over 300, and that is way over the over, so I'm taking the over.
Yeah, I'm on the under here. I think that
No.
it's not an anti-Bengals thing. I mean, he went under this number and they beat the Chiefs. He had 250 passing yards against the Chiefs. He doesn't have to go. I think the notion that for the Bengals to win, he has to be over this number is actually incorrect. I think that you would love for Joe Burrow to be under this number because it means that the Bengals offense has established a run, is getting Joe Mixon working in that ground game. And the other thing, too, Kenny White and I talked about this on Sportsline on HQ on Monday afternoon. The Bengals and the Rams are both very methodical with their offenses. You're going to see a lot of runs on first downs from Zach Taylor. I mean, he's not going to completely abandon his play calling tendencies in the Super Bowl. Like, that would be outrageous. Maybe we'll see a mix up early on and they go, no huddle or run some tempo. But I think this number stays under the 273. If you want to bet it, you can probably wait because, as Kenny points out, this is the type of number where a bunch of public donkeys like to push that number up, and because they're taking the over, and you can get the under perhaps later at a better number. But I do like the under for Joe Burrow passing yards. Matthew Stafford's total, 279.5 passing yards. Over or under, Wilson?
I'm going to pull a reverse Brinson. Breech. I'm going to go under the number on Matthew Stafford. And here's the thing. He played well the last 2 games, but you look at the Week 18 game against the 49ers, he threw for 230 yards. He didn't play well that game. They only needed him to throw for 202 yards in the playoff game against the Cardinals, and they still won that game easily, as we talked about earlier in the show. And I think it could be a situation where he's not doing a whole lot. They perhaps lean on Cam Akers. They perhaps get the ball out of Matthew Stafford's hands in other ways, and he's not asked to sling the ball down the field. Now, if they're trailing, that could change the dynamics. But I'm going to go under as we sit here.
Yeah, and you talked about how the Bengals' ideal offensive game plan would be, Joe Burrow not throwing it a lot. And I think their ideal defensive game plan is to beg the Rams to run the ball, is to take Cooper Kupp and Odell Beckham out of the game and take Matthew Stafford out of the game by, maybe they do what they did against the Chiefs and only have 3 pass rushers and 8 guys drop back in coverage and saying, you know what, we're going to let you run it because we don't want your best players to beat us. And so I think the Bengals are going to need to do something like that. And so I think they are going to dare the Rams to run, which is going to cut into Matthew Stafford's passing total. I think this one's close. I don't like taking the under here, but I'm going to take the under.
Okay. I'm on the over in this one, and I think you can see from multiple different game scripts, whether it's a close game or the only way that I think this one is a stone cold lock to stay under is if it's an absolute bloodbath. Like if Joe Burrow is just getting sacked constantly, the Bengals are 3 and out, and the Rams are just melting clock in the entire second half, and with a 20-point lead, and the Bengals can't mount a comeback. What we saw, with that Buccaneers game was Stafford was definitely under his total. And then when the Bucs started making this comeback, they had to sort of force the pass more. You get those that late shot to Cooper Kupp, of course, that set up the game-winning field goal. He also went way over this against San Francisco in a game that was back and forth and close. So I think I'll take the over because I think there are more outs to get there versus, the under likely hitting if it's a blowout by the Rams. Cooper Kupp's over 106.5 receiving yards, Wilson.
I'm going over that number, so I'm threading the needle here with the under on Stafford and the over on Cooper Kupp. But you just sort of pointed it out. Cooper Kupp can have 4 yards going into the fourth quarter. 2 throws later, he's going to get the over. So I think Cooper Kupp, the Bengals no doubt are going to try to double team him, take him away, perhaps let Odell Beckham get involved. But I think at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many people put on Cooper Kupp. He's still going to hit that over number.
Now you pointed out that you thought they were going to put a bunch of people on him and try and take him away. So I'm guessing you want to go in the opposite direction.
Well, I think that the one thing that's been a constant with the Rams throughout this entire season is that if Cooper Kupp goes off, the Rams are going to win. If he finished with 125 or more receiving yards, they went 8-0. When he went under 125, they were 7-5. So limiting him feels like arguably the biggest key to victory outside of the Rams defensive line versus the Bengals offensive line. And so they're going to have to the Bengals have to think outside the box. No one's been able to slow down Cooper Kupp. So I think if you think the Bengals are going to win, you got to hope the under hits here. So I am taking.
So you're wish casting on the Cooper Kupp under.
I'm going under.
Yeah, but the thing is, for me, if the Bengals are winning, Cooper Kupp's getting fed. Like if the Rams are trying to come back, Cooper Kupp is getting the ball a ton. You can try to double team him all you want. It doesn't slow him down. I'm definitely on the over here. And in full disclosure, I bet it at 102.5 when it initially came out, and it climbed up to 104.5. It sat there for a night, and then it's climbed up to 106.5. I mean, it's going to be tough to find people who want to. Like you're picking the under, but you're not betting on the under, right? Like you're not going to lay it.
We'll see.
They're not betting on the under. Jamar Chase. Over, under. Last one for the show. Jamar Chase, over, under. 78.5 receiving yards. Will it be shocking if both Bengals backers take the over? No, but I'll let you try and throw it out anyway.
I'm going over. And, again, this is a one-pass situation where you can go over rather easily. He makes one guy miss and he's to the house. This is going to be critical, John, to the Bengals winning this football game.
Yeah, I actually don't think that Chase is going to hit 100 yards, but I do think he's going to go over this number. I think he finishes with 80 or 90 yards and just does just enough to keep that offense going.
Yeah, I'm going to take the under here, and it's not necessarily like a case of
I'm projecting.
Vikings projecting.
No, I'm not. I'm not. I don't think it has to do with a win or a loss because we saw him go under this number against the Chiefs last week. We saw him go. Well, I guess under the Cleveland game doesn't really count because he got the record and it came out. But he went under this game, under this number a ton of times. Like if you look at Jamar Chase, look, he's a monster. He's a stud. He's probably going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year on Saturday night. But this is a guy who, just the way that he sort of puts up yardage, it comes in these big chunks, right?
Yeah.
Like he had the 200-yard receiving game against Baltimore in Week 7. He had the 266 against Kansas City in the regular season. Had 116 and 109 in the playoffs, and then didn't do much against Kansas City. And I think there's the better chance of, and Jalen Ramsey's been in the slot, that maybe they won't move him around as much, but I think there's a better chance that the Rams utilize Jalen Ramsey to neutralize Jamar Chase as opposed to T. Higgins or Tyler Boyd. So in that case, I like the under here. All right, that'll do it for Tuesday's show. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out with us. Pick 6 Podcast will be on location all week long. And, of course, stick with CBS Sports HQ for all your Super Bowl needs. For Ryan Wilson and John Breech, I'm Will Brinson. We will see you guys later.